Hi, I'm Denise. I'm with Homegrown, Missouri. Along with Joanna, I'm one of the original people that started in this whole group. So generally no one has trouble hearing me. I'm usually pretty loud. So I'm doing the easiest thing today. I'm doing Kefir or Kefir. There's two different pronunciations of it. It is also from Russia. They knew a lot about fermenting. But in Russia, it is called Kefir. So if you speak to someone who knows the original pronunciation, that's what you'll hear. I call it Kefir because people, when I say Kefir, they look at me like I'm speaking a foreign language. So I always just say Kefir, or Kefir rather. This is the easiest thing to do. I gave you a 2-page handout. There's a lot more information on there on how you handle it if you want to take a vacation or something like that. It's really simple. Mine is grown in the raw cow's milk. I also get my milk from Lorne Dairy in Galena. Awesome milk, it's Jersey milk. So it's got nice, thick, rich cream on the top of it. You can grow it in pasteurized milk also. My mom does pasteurized. And the only thing that does not work well for it is if you see some milk at the store has UHT on the label. It's ultra high temp pasteurized. That will not work. So you want to avoid that. Plain pasteurized will work. And it will really kind of gets acclimated to the type of milk that you use. So mine's been growing in raw milk for, I think I bought the grains on the internet, which seems like that's where everybody gets started. And I've been using the same grains for, I think about 3 years now. So, and it's very comfortable in the raw milk. But are any of you familiar with Kefir? A lot of people do have it. This is actually, this one's been growing, I put it on the counter last night about, maybe 8 o'clock last night, and I have actually too many grains in here for the amount of milk. These grains are so comfy in this milk right now that I could actually probably Kefir a quart at a time in 24 hours. This took about 12 hours, and it's really getting now a little thicker than I normally let it get. But basically, with the grains, when you buy them, if you do buy them, the easiest way to get is if you know somebody that's doing Kefir, the grains keep growing, and you'll have to keep either using more milk to Kefir the milk, or a shorter period of time, or you just take a few of them and give to a friend of yours. That's the best way to get it. Share it with someone else. But the grains kind of look like, it looks like a bunch of cauliflower. Yeah, it does kind of look curdled. But it's actually a mixture of yeast and bacteria also. It's good bacteria. Has a lot of enzymes in that helps with digestion. Same way with all of the other fermented products. They're all good for you. But basically this one here, this grain is getting a little bit big right now. I would actually go ahead and pull this apart. And when you do that, it actually kefirs the milk a lot more efficiently. It'll work a lot faster. And then you end up with too many grains and you can give some to a friend. So I let mine go about that far, and then I start breaking them apart. And I literally just take it with my fingers and I'll wash my hands, and I can show you what I do with it. But I pull it apart with my fingers. And you want to try to use glass or plastic with Kefir grains. You can use stainless steel if that's all you have, but do not use any reactive metals. No aluminum or copper or anything like that. Stainless steel if that's all you have. I really like these plastic spoons. Some people will use like a plastic colander and pour it through a colander. That's too much to wash for me, so I just like the plastic spoon and I just kind of bounce it off like that, and that's all I do with it. So basically to pull this apart, and when you pick it up, you can see how it looked like it was all one piece, but it's actually kind of a long grain. So you literally just be gentle with it, but just literally pull it apart. Okay?
kind of like little cauliflowers.
It does, yeah. It looks like cauliflower. It's really soft feeling and kind of gelatinous, which I figure is probably a lot like the SCOBY. But generally, when I do this way, I try to remember how many grains I have in here. I have 8 pieces in here. So when I pull them out, I just count how many I have to pull them out, and you can see that one's starting to come apart too. There's 2. And if you don't get them all, that's fine. I mean, you can eat the grains. You can use them in smoothies. And this sets out on the counter, just like the other ferments. There we go. That's all of them. Now, when I started out with this, I had it in the fridge for a while. I took a vacation from it because you'll get so much kefir, you get tired of it after a while. When I put it in the fridge, I would say the grain itself was probably about the size of this cup. And then when I got it out to start reusing it, I just broke it all into small pieces. So there's the amount of grains I have right now. Now this amount of grains, like I said, that would probably kefir a quart of the milk at this point. And generally you leave it sit for 24 hours. Mine, with that little bit of milk and that much grains, 12 hours tops, and it was way ready. It's kind of thick, very similar in taste and texture to like buttermilk. In fact, I use it in place of buttermilk. If I have a recipe that calls for buttermilk, I use it in place of that. Let's see here. What else do we have? Okay, and I talked about taking a vacation from it. By the way, I would then take this, I pour it into my jar that I have it in the fridge, and I refrigerate it without the grains in it. The reason I do that is I like mine better when it's cold. Some people will just drink it like this. I like it better cold, so you can do that if you want. But I would literally pour this into the jar in the fridge, and then I'd throw my grains right back in here and pour the next batch of milk. Okay. I actually have, some people like to wash their jars first, so I just have this is just regular raw milk. So I just take these grains and dump it in that jar. And I do not put the lid on tight. I just kind of turn it a few turns. And then, as it's sitting there on the counter, whenever I think of it, I basically will just pick it up and give it a little shake, or you can kind of just swish it around. That really helps it to produce the kefir faster, because it'll start to, and you'll see it start to separate actually on the counter a little bit as it's making the kefir. And you'll see little pockets of what looks like yellow. That's actually the whey that you're seeing in those pockets. If you left it sit on the counter the rest of that time, it would eventually separate and you'd have a layer of kefir and a layer of whey. And you could actually do kefir cheese that way. But I just give it a little shake every now and then, and in about 24 hours, it's done and ready to go. I pull the grains out, put it in my jar in the fridge, the kefir in the jar in the fridge, and start over again. Now, if I want to take a vacation from it, I'll probably, in that amount of grains, I'd have to fill this jar with milk, take it immediately and stick it in the fridge. It will still ferment while it's in the fridge, but it will ferment very, very slowly. What it's basically doing is sugar, there's a lot of sugar in milk, and it's basically fermenting off of that sugar that's in the milk. So in the fridge, you'll see it start to separate too. Every now and then, even if you're not going to bring it out and start using it again, just get it out, rinse it off with some fresh milk, and put it in a fresh jar of milk. If it eventually eats all the sugar that's in that milk, they could die. I mean, because it's a living organism, just like the SCOBY and the other ferments that you have. It is a living organism, and it needs something to feed off of. And so you need to give it some fresh milk once in a while if you're going to leave it in there an extended period of time.
The milk temperature that you start with, pour it into your milk.
Put the grains in the milk?
Yeah.
It's right out of the fridge. Okay, it's right out of the fridge. Some people will let theirs warm up to room temp. I don't. I just let it right out of the fridge and and start from there. When you bring it out, you've decided you're going to start using your kefir again, you're going to start up with it, bring it out of the fridge, and you can use the milk that's in, the kefir that's in there. Most of the time it will be separated. It will smell very yeasty, because a lot of yeast is produced, and there's yeast and bacteria that is actually made up of in the grain itself. So it'll smell really yeasty. You could use it in something like in replace of buttermilk. If I don't want to do that, I'll dump it down the drain, give it a rinse in fresh milk.
Feed it to my dog.
Oh, the dog likes it?
Oh, the
Chickens do too.
The chickens, yeah, I've heard that. I don't have any, and then rinse it in the fresh milk, and then put it in your milk. Usually with mine, it takes maybe two times of rinsing it and putting it in fresh milk before it's really good to drink. You can use it in recipes. It's very yeasty when you go to drink it. But that's pretty much it. It's probably the easiest thing to make. Questions from anybody?
I bought off of the internet some kefir granules. Mine never got like that.
Oh, did you use the powder? Was it powder? Okay. And I wanted to bring that along, but I forgot it. You can buy a powdered kefir grain. That will not reproduce the grains. It will make kefir. It's a little bit different than this kind, but it will make kefir. I've done it both ways, and I much prefer the grains. To me, well, those will keep repopulating. You know, they'll keep growing. You pull them apart. You give some to friends, and you know you can keep making more and more if you want to. Let's see. You can drink it straight, and generally it has a little bit of effervescence also, especially if you shake it like I do, and I like that effervescence. So I do shake it on occasion, and even I've been storing it up in the fridge, and since this has kind of traveled with me, you could see when I first took it out of the fridge, you could see the little pockets of the whey in it. But what I'll do is I'll just shake it up, and then it'll give off a little effervescence. And when you do that, when you shake it, this on the counter, these lids are not airtight, so you'll actually hear the fizz come out of the lid, and as you loosen it, you'll hear it. So it does have a little bit of effervescence to it. And could you hear that? Yes.
Denise, what grains? What grains?
They're kefir grains. When I took that one out and showed it, it's called a grain. It looks like a little piece of cauliflower, and then you pull it apart, and it's called a grain.
So you need a starter.
You need that
You can
to
get it
start
from
with.
someone else, or you get off the web, or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about making smoothies? Because we've been doing this for years.
Yes.
Maybe Marie could just...
Well, and one other thing that I was going to say is she went ahead and strained hers. We actually have, and I've got a picture of it in here, we actually have a floaty, it's called. It's a little plastic floaty.
Floater,
We got
yeah.
it when we bought our kefir grains on the web. And we keep our kefir grains in a floaty that you just move the floaty from one jar to the next jar, and then you can open it and take half of them out, and you don't have to strain it that way. So that's just another way.
It's faster.
It's just faster for us. So that's just another way to do it. But we've been doing it probably, what,
5 years, yeah.
5 to 8 years, something like that, for a long time. We let ours get a little thicker sometimes,
Yeah, you can.
so that it's more like yogurt, because we use them for smoothies. I mean,
It's awesome.
usually in the spring, we
Yes.
do a smoothie season for about 3 or 4 months, and then we put them up for a while. So we let ours get a lot thicker.
And then
but
tell
you
them what
can-
we do with that, how we do that.
Well, then we do make smoothies. Now, we have a Vitamix, which is a high-powered blender, and we usually freeze some fruit, whatever fruit's in
And ice
season.
cube trays.
In ice cube trays, or just the fruit itself. It depends on if you want a mixture or not. And the only reason we do that is because we like ours nice and cold, and we're spoiled. We like it like an ice
You
cream
can eat it
shake
with a
almost.
spoon when you
Sure.
do that.
Yeah. So that's how we do it. But everybody can do their own thing. If you prefer it more liquidy like this, that's a good thing too.
So we blend fruit, we pour it in ice cube trays, freeze that, and then when the kefir's ready, we just use that at room temperature, put that in the blender, the Vitamix, pour in the ice cubes, and then mix a little honey with it, as sweetener, whatever you want to use. But yeah,
Or stevia.
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
mine a little bit
stevia.
different. See,
Yeah, you want to sweeten it a little bit usually, but that's a good way to get rid of fruit.
Yeah. See, I just literally freeze my fruit on trays, and I do mine, I make mine about this thick, and I have an immersion blender. Are you all familiar with that? Most fascinating thing you can use in the kitchen, because you can use it in your pot if you want to blend up soup. But it comes with a little beaker. I throw some frozen fruit in there. I fill it about half full with the kefir. I use a little stevia, and because we're trying to get away from sugar in our house, so I use a little stevia. And you need to do that to taste. Stick that immersion blender in there, and with the frozen fruit, if you use enough of it, it literally gets so thick, it's like eating ice cream. I mean, it's really good stuff. And you can use any fruit. We tend to like the strawberries best, but I've used bananas, which just help to thicken it. So it's really versatile. And if you like green smoothies, you could throw some kale in there and do your green smoothies that way too. So, but it's a really healthful food. Of course, it has billions of bacteria and healthy bacteria in the yeast strains. You know, everybody hears about yogurt and eating yogurt because it has healthy bacteria. This has about 30 times the amount of healthy bacteria in it compared to yogurt. It's pretty high powerful
That's
stuff.
a different bacteria.
It's different, yeah. It's a lot of different bacteria. But it also...
Have you experimented with anything, any kind of thickeners like xanthan or?
No. No, I tend to be low tech. I mean, I want to use...
Is it xanthan? Isn't that highly GMO?
xanthan gum.
No. Xanthan is
Xanthan gum is very GMO.
But yeah, I don't. I mean, I literally use fruit,
I've never
stevia,
heard of
and
it.
the
You
kefir.
have, but I bought it in the health store.
Any other
Oh, it may
questions?
not be there, but I know that commercially a lot of it is.
You can take, when you go to vacation or something, you can take it small jar and, you can use it.
Oh yeah, take it with you if you go on vacation. Yes. Yeah. And it'll keep, like, even though I poured this into the jar and it does not have any grains in it, I was just collecting it all week because I wasn't sure how many people were going to come. It'll keep fermenting just very, very slowly in the fridge. But eventually, if I left this sit in the fridge for a long period of time, you'd see the separation. You'd see the kefir usually up at the top, and it'll look kind of cottage cheese-like, is about the best way I can describe it. And on the bottom will be a layer of clear yellow liquid, and that's the whey. And you can take that kefir off the top and let more of the liquid drain out, and you'll have a kefir cheese, which is very similar to cream cheese. It has that little bit of tartness to it, and it's actually very good.
Yeah.
So that's just on the top.
Well, I mean, you would dump it out of the jar, or scoop it out. If it gets that firm, you can scoop it out. And just let it, you could put it in a strainer or colander and let the rest of that whey drain out. And it gets very thick. I mean, it's spreadable. Yeah, the stuff on top. The whey, of course, will be liquid.
You see the longer?
Yes.
That's what I was.
Yeah. So, and you can do that. Now, if I left this sit on the kitchen counter long enough, with that small amount of milk that I had in it, I wanted to make sure it was kefir when I came this morning, but it would eventually separate also, and you'd see the layer of the kefir on the top. And it would look cottage cheese-like, and then on the bottom you'd see clear yellow liquid, and that would be the whey.
So if you don't shake it, then you can
It'll separate like that.
okay, and then that would be what you want to bring up.
Yeah, if you were going to do like the cheese kind of
Don't
thing.
shake, just let it separate.
Right, just let it separate. And it will do that in the fridge also.
I think there's one thing that might be a little important, is like you said, if you start it with raw milks, to keep using that one with raw milk,
Yeah.
and don't switch in the middle of it, and,
You can switch,
but then stick with that.
then you want to stick with that, right?
Yeah.
If all you have available is the pasteurized milk, and you get the grains from someone who's been growing it in the raw milk, it'll take a few times for it to really get comfortable in that milk. But then once it does, don't then take those grains and go back to the raw milk and go back and forth like that. Because
Yeah.
it takes a period of time.
Try
for
to
it
stick with the
adjust.
same thing.
Yeah, definitely stick with the same.
And I've heard you can make it with like soy milk or,
Yeah, I've
but
never
once
tried
again,
it.
once you start in something, then just stay in that, if it's soy milk or rice milk or whatever, just stay in that particular one, because that's what the grains are gonna get accustomed to and start.
All right, thank you.
Thank